Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Hello, Kaleidahope. Hello, Beth. Hello, Tree Baby. Hello, Slim. Mama K made it in. One Love made it in. I saw Titanium Built was in. Victoria's in. I think I said hi to everybody else. OJ and I were in here getting the show ready. OJ was eating his bacon. It was to his liking, so win-win for me. That's the way we like to start the day. Izzy's here. Pat's here. I had about 3 different shows I was working on yesterday. Now, I had heard about the confessions of Richard last week. And then all hell broke loose yesterday with the document dump. Wow. Now, this case has always been extremely dark, extremely disturbing, and we have a lot to go through today. And I mean a lot. I just had to squirt OJ. He wants more bacon. I don't have time to make him bacon right now. So, good morning, Blue Eyes. All right, lay right there. Just lay there. Don't chew the wire. Just lay there. It's always been so disturbing to me, and I still might be one of the rare ones. I still think other people are involved. I don't think it's just Richard. Now, I know the talk of the streets. I know what his defense is saying, that these confessions were his mental status. Well, he talked to his mama and he talked to his wife, Kathy. Now they have him in not such a nice jail, if you want to, if you know what I mean. And yeah, his health is deteriorating. He's not he's not hanging in well. Some people are saying it's his mental status. That's the reason that he made these confessions to his mom and to Kathy. I don't know. I don't know. But they have him on a recorded call confessing that he indeed did kill Abby and Libby, and more has come out. Now, I'm not going to go through every gruesome detail because YouTube doesn't like that. Mermaid said maybe it's because he's declining and he wants to get forgiveness. So he's talking to his mom, he's talking to Kathy because he wants to clear his conscience. I don't know. All right, I got to do something with this cat. Come on. Come on, we're not doing this. Go play with your bird. All right, sorry about that, but it is a live show. And you know how we do it? We're going to go to the beginning. Wiz said the evidence says it's him alone, but Doug Carter has been saying that he feels there's someone else. Right here, Doug Carter, November 3rd, said, this is the top cop of Indiana, Doug Carter, in an interview Thursday, said his agency is still looking for others involved in the Delphi murders. Tips are still coming in. Katie, thank you for gifting memberships. We have a members live today at 12:30. Welcome to the family. And I still believe there's others out there. You're not going to get Keegan or Kegan Klein out of my mind and his sicko daddy. It's all too convenient that they were communicating with the Anthony Shots profile. And well, you know where we are. You know where we are. According to WRTV, on April 3rd, 2023, Richard Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard Allen admitted several times that he killed Abby and Libby. Investigators have the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. You bet she did. He also spoke to his mother. Now, for whatever reason, Kathy and Richie's mama showed up to court. This was shared in the group last week. Thank you for the super sticker, Snazzy. She said, I worry these recorded calls and being in prison versus a county jail will F up the conviction. He shouldn't even be in prison yet. That's what I've been saying. He should be in a county jail. Then when convicted, put him there. They keep saying it's for his safety. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. He should not be in prison right now. You're 100% right, Snazzy. So, I mean, there's Kathy and the mama. He's confessed this, and they're still there to support him or to support the families. I don't know what their mindset is. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. Some people say, what is the motive? Well, I'm going to go to an interview that Doug Carter had where he says, Bud, from your Dropbox account, off of your phone, we have started one of the largest child porn investigations ever undertaken in the state of Indiana. Have a feeling that might be the motive. We're going to wind up hearing a lot about Richard Allen as this unfolds. Let's take a second and tell everybody hello. Good morning, everybody. Unseen Thinker says, I don't think Richard Allen is connected to KK anymore. I don't know. For some reason, I'm just not convinced. I'd love to hear your theory on that, though. It's just lightning struck at just the right time. The girls are Libby is communicating with the Anthony Shots profile. Keegan's behind it, plus other people. They go to the bridge. There was no plans for that. And then they're met by Richard. He's just taken a walk on the bridge that day. Or did someone tell him they were going to be there? A lot went on that day. A lot went on. Let's look at this real quick.
This is your guy?
The judge signed the probable cause affidavit for the arrest of Richard Allen for 2 counts of murder. Yes.
Do you think there are other people involved?
I'm not going to go there. I really hope that now that we're in this phase of prosecutorial process and due process, because everyone's innocent until they're proven guilty.
OT said it's not a coincidence that KKRA of the girls are in the same circle with no connections at all. There's got to be a connection. I don't believe in coincidence. And I believe when Doug Carter and the DA said, we think there's other people involved. Maybe not in the murder, but in something else, if you know what I mean. Good morning, Crime Story Diva. Let's welcome our friend Duke to the family. Duke just got a YouTube membership. Don't forget today at 12:30 Central Time, we're having a members live. Let's rewind and go to the very beginning. And it's heartbreaking.
From Channel 13
We have nobody in custody at this time. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, there is somebody out there that did this horrendous crime, and we're going to track him down.
That's state police talking about the fear and concern in a small town community after they announced that 2 missing girls were in fact victims of murder.
Investigators solemnly identified the 2 bodies found in Carroll County as 13-year-olds Libby German and Abby Williams. Now, we still don't know what happened to them after they disappeared during an afternoon hiking trip.
Eyewitness News reporter Rich Van Wyk begins our team coverage tonight, first with an update on the investigation. Rich?
Anne Marie, the autopsies confirmed identities, but how these children were killed, the circumstances surrounding their death, police aren't talking about that. They say they don't want to say anything that could jeopardize this double homicide investigation. For the second day, local, state, and federal investigators scoured over the crime scene. Early afternoon, divers joined the search for clues that could lead detectives to the girl's killer. The autopsies confirmed what everyone, including the teens' families, suspected and feared.
I think they were in pretty much belief that it was their children. But when you hear it from an official, it's still a little it hits home twice.
One of the hundreds of volunteer searchers found the bodies of Libby German and Abby Williams in a wooded area near Deer Creek. It is an area accessible only by foot or on horse. Well off the popular trails the 13-year-olds were hiking. Dozens of police are now checking hundreds of leads.
We are using resources from all the way from Lowell, Fort Wayne, and the southern part of the state's police, state troopers. We will stay on the job until it is done.
Police say they have no
Okay, look at this again.
say anything that could jeopardize this double homicide investigation. For the second day, local, state, and federal investigators scoured over the crime scene. Early afternoon, divers joined the search for clues that could lead detectives to the girl's killer. The autopsies confirmed what everyone, including the teens' families, suspected and feared.
I think they were in pretty much belief that it was their children. But when you hear it from an official, it's still a little it hits home twice.
One of the hundreds of volunteer searchers found the bodies of Libby German and Abby Williams in a wooded area near Deer Creek. It is an area accessible only by foot or on horse. Well off the popular trails the 13-year-olds were hiking. Dozens of police are now checking hundreds of leads.
We are using resources from all the way from Lowell, Fort Wayne, and the southern part of the state's police, state troopers. We will stay on the job until it is done.
Police say they have no suspects or persons of interest. They're asking anyone who was in the hiking area, who saw something or heard something or took any pictures, contact them.
Should people in this community be concerned about someone running around targeting kids?
My response is no. I feel safe for this community.
Libby and Abby, teens teachers describe as happy and go lucky, attended Delphi's middle school. Crisis teams were ready for students and teachers when they arrived at all the district schools.
They're just asking those questions right now of, oh my gosh, it hit me, and somebody's there for them.
The double homicide has prompted one of the largest investigations some officers say they've ever been part of.
So as far as I'm concerned, yes, there is somebody out there that did this horrendous crime, and we're going to track him down.
Also, police say there is someone out there who probably saw something, was on the trails, was driving that part of the country just east of Delphi. They may have seen someone, they may have seen a car that perhaps looked out of place, and that's why police want that person to call them. Back to you.
A revelation from the prosecutor in the Delphi double murders.
Well, someone did take pictures. People were there. One of the most important pictures taken was by one of the victims herself, Liberty German. This is of her friend Abby, February 13th at 2:07 p.m. on the bridge. And this went on for years. And Richard was hiding in plain sight. He worked up the CVS, which isn't far from the sheriff's office. Besides the picture, she also got this audio, which is extremely important. And Doug Carter was exactly right. Richard was hiding in plain sight. He had his same routine, mowed the lawn the same day every week, went to the bar. There he is at the bar with Kathy, and behind him is the flyer about Abby and Libby. He took great pride, this is at the CVS he worked at, making sure to keep his own sketch up for people to see when they came in. Because he knew this sketch didn't look like him, is what my opinion is. He took great pride in making sure. On top of that, when Tara went into the CVS to get photos made for Libby's funeral, he waited on her and told her she didn't need to pay for them. I also believe that he was at all the press conferences. Let me show you why. For one, to me, this looks like him. You may have to screenshot it and blow it up. This was put on Twitter back in 2018. It said this dude was apparently lurking around the press conference. Kind of weird. Who would be this bold? Could be an innocent guy, but everyone needs to stay alert. They were taking a lot of pictures of who was interested, and Doug Carter decided to do the New Direction press conference, which is very important in this case. Very important. And in this press conference, they had people, when they would come in, they had to sign their name as if they were going to see the president speak or something. And in this press conference, he's scanning, he's looking, and he's speaking directly to the killer.
You inspire people that you don't even understand, and you don't even understand why. Information is being released today is the result of literally thousands and thousands of hours of extraordinary investigative efforts by Delphi, Carroll County, the FBI, the Indiana State Police, and countless other agencies. This community surrounded us some 26 months ago, and you did everything you could to support us, but most importantly, you surrounded the family of these two little girls. Gosh, I'll never forget it. After you hear what we're going to release today, I'm going to ask for your continued support, your continued understanding, your empathy and compassion as we move forward to find out who did this, and we will.
In this press conference, now he's always confident, he's always got his stuff together, but he seems very on edge. I think at this point, they knew that the killer was hiding in plain sight, which he will say, and that he had been to other press conferences, because this looks just like Richie to me. Looks just like him.
We're seeking the public's help to identify the driver of a vehicle that was parked at the old CPS DCS welfare building in the city of Delphi that was abandoned on the east side of County Road 300 North next to the Hoosier Heartland Highway between the hours of noon to 5 on February 14th, 2017. If you were parked there or know who was parked there, please contact the officers at the command post at the Delphi City Building. We are releasing additional portions of the audio recording from that day. Please keep in mind, the person talking is one person and is the person on the bridge with the girls. This is not two different people speaking. Please listen to it very, very carefully. We are also releasing video recovered from Libby's phone. This video has never before been previously released. The video shows a suspect walking on the bridge. When you see the video, watch the person's mannerisms as they walk. Watch the mannerisms as he walks. Do you recognize the mannerisms as being someone that you might know? Remember, he is walking on the former railroad bridge. Because of the deteriorated condition of the bridge, the suspect is not walking naturally due to the spacing between the ties. During the course of this investigation, we have concluded the first sketch released will become secondary as of today. The result of the new information and intelligence over time leads us to believe the sketch, which you will see shortly, is the person responsible for the murders of these two little girls. We also believe this person is from Delphi, currently or has previously lived here, visits Delphi on a regular basis, or works here. We believe this person is currently between the age range of 18 and 40, but might appear younger than his true age. Directly to the killer, who may be in this room.
Okay, this is really important. He may work here. We believe he's from Delphi. Now watch his demeanor when he says he may be in this room. Could you imagine if you were at that press conference? You know everybody was on their tippy toes.
Directly to the killer, who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight. For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have. We likely have interviewed you or someone close to you. We know that this is about power to you. And you want to know what we know. And one day, you will. A question to you. What will those closest to you think of? They find out that you brutally murdered 2 little girls. 2 children. Only a coward would do such a thing. We are confident that you have told someone what you have done. Or at the very least, they know because of how different you are since the murders. We try so hard to understand how a person could do something like this to two children. I recently watched a movie called The Shack. And there's also a book that talks so well about evil, about death, and about eternity. To the murderer, I believe you have just a little bit of a conscience left. And I can assure you that how you left them in that woods is not what they're experiencing today. To the family,
He's really on edge. You can tell. He said, "What are these people gonna think of you?" This press conference is classic. He may be in this room. What are people gonna think of you? I think you still have some conscience left. What are they gonna think of you? They've already profiled the killer. They're like, he's in Delphi. He works here. He lives here. They didn't know who it was at the time, but they had their profile.
I hope that you all will give them some time, because we're going to be asking that there's no media inquiry or no media response for at least the next 2 weeks, and I hope you understand why. The family found out about this information this morning. I just want the family to know that when I take my last breath on this earth, I'll be thinking of them. There's going to be a tremendous amount of questions. I know that. Never in my career have I stood in front of something like this. Please be patient with us, please. We're just beginning. We are just now beginning. And I can tell you on behalf of the sheriff and the police chief, so many other partners that have stood with us over this period of time, that we will not stop.
I just unveiled the person that we believe responsible for the murder of these two little girls. So I invite media to take a look at that now. It's not up. Kim. We're also going to show you a video not previously released that superintendent spoke to, and also the audio that's additional to what's been previously released. It's only a slight change on it. So give Sergeant Riley just a second as he gets that up and ready. Stand by for the video, please. There is no sound of the video. As Superintendent Carter mentioned, he is on the railway bridge. You have to take different steps to get to it. This information later this afternoon will be on the State Police website. For the community that's here, we have 100 copies of the news release. If you put in that URL, you'll be able to get to that site to play it. And we also have that same release for you in the media. And the rest of the state will get that release in about 15 minutes. So we appreciate those of you that came here. This concludes our announcement. Thank you for your time, patience, and courtesy.
And that, my friends, is one of the most chilling press conferences I have ever heard in my life. When you have the top cop in the state saying he could be right here in this room. You know why I think he said that? Because of that. That was floating around on many Twitter accounts. Who is this guy? And they did interview him early on. He said, we've probably already interviewed you. Slim Hauser says, this POS helped the family make the missing flyers. You're damn right he did. He hung them up at his own work. At his own work. His own composite. It was known around the CVS, make sure there's always a clean copy. He told the family it was his pleasure to give them flyers. Again, back to this, Libby's funeral. He made sure to wait on Tara and said, you don't need to pay for them. Exactly, Tamara. Doug Carter was exactly right. He was hiding in plain sight. Richard is also married, or Richie as they call him. I call him Wretchy because he's wretched. Married to Kathy. They have a daughter I don't want to bring into it. But on 7/5 of 2018, this picture was posted on Kathy's Facebook. This is his daughter on the bridge. His daughter on the bridge. There's also pictures of his daughter wearing Abby and Libby t-shirts. Nani said, RA has one heck of a sick and depraved mind. Yeah. Yeah. It's all bad, my friends. It's all bad. And they're still getting tips. They're still investigating. And I'm not going to be surprised if more people are involved. Steph B said she was wearing their t-shirts. Yeah, his daughter was. The pink and purple tie-dyed that says Justice for Abby and Libby. Yeah, there's a picture of her with the cat. All right, so as we know, we're going to fast forward to 2022. Inquisitor put this together, and I absolutely think it's great work. Who is Richard exactly? We know on his record that he had gotten a DUI, but a DUI is really not anything close to the murders of Abby and Libby, which are heinous. Down the hill. He spent time with the girls.
On Friday, October 28, 2022, the news broke out that a person named Richard Matthew Allen, 50 years old, from Delphi, Indiana, was booked into Carroll County Jail in connection to the murders of Liberty German and Abigail Williams on the 13th of February 2017. His home was also searched a week before his arrest, and the neighbors saw police activity. Apparently, a fire pit was also dug up out back behind his property. Richard Matthew Allen worked as a pharmacy tech at the CVS Pharmacy in Delphi, Indiana.
So a year after the Delphi murders, he becomes a pharmacy tech at the CVS right there in Delphi. He wasn't hiding. As Doug Carter said, he was hiding in plain sight. As you know, and I've shown it several times, this is the entrance to the CVS with his sketch. And it's not too far from the sheriff's department. He was filling prescriptions for law enforcement, selling Mother's Day cards.
Rob and Judy, this arrest not only bringing relief to this community, but shock, as many people who live here tell me that the suspect is actually a local working here in Delphi for years. The murders of two teenage girls from Delphi, Indiana, rattling their hometown to its core, as more than 5 years went by without an arrest.
It's scary because we have a lot of trails here, and I have a teenage daughter, and we enjoyed going on those trails and doing things in the community, so it just left you with a feeling of uneasiness.
Now some relief, as sources tell WRTV, our ABC affiliate in Indianapolis, that an arrest has been made in the investigation into the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. The teens' bodies were found near a hiking trail in February of 2017. The name of the person arrested has not been confirmed, but sources say that the suspect appeared in court this morning. Heather Starkis says she knows the suspect. She described the person arrested as a local who worked at a Delphi pharmacy store for years. She had this to say about the suspect.
The person that they're accusing has children of their own, so how would you feel if something like this were to happen to your children?
German's sister posting on Twitter today in part, quote, "Just know how grateful I am for all of you. Today is the day."
I hope the best for the community and the families, that everybody can finally be at peace with what happened to those girls.
And Indiana State Police are expected to identify the suspect Monday morning, when they are expected to give us more information on this case next week. For now, we're live in Delphi, Indiana. I'm Trey Ward, ABC 7 Eyewitness.
Richard Matthew Allen was brought up in Mexico, Indiana, and went to the North Miami High School in Denver, Indiana. He seems to also have a normal family life with a wife and children. I think Richard Matthew Allen has elements to his face from both sketches and bears a similarity to an old person of interest named Jimmy Dale Duvall, who the 16-year-old witness claimed looked similar to when they spoke to Douglas Rice. The witness told Douglas Rice the person she saw was around her height, 5'6" or not much taller, and the bottom half of his face was covered with a scarf up to his nose. They also claimed he was wearing a short-billed hat with a hoodie pulled over it. Was the person she saw she believed to be Bridge Guy actually Richard Matthew Allen and not Jimmy Dale Duvall? I think Richard Matthew Allen is Bridge Guy. I think his height and overall appearance checks out to the person on the bridge. I don't think the police would make an arrest if they weren't sure and inform the families prior to any media statement. Speculation will ensue if he's connected to the Kleins and the recent Wabash River search at the Kelly Avenue Bridge in Peru, Indiana. Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter told Barbara McDonald on Friday, "The good news, we've made progress. The bad news, we can't tell you about it." Doug Carter is supposed to be attending the press conference on Monday when the big announcement will be made.
Well, he did, and they named him for 2 counts of murder. We did a whole show about the probable cause. A lot of people were like, there's a lot missing out of this. But we know how probable causes go. Sometimes it's got so much information, you can't get through it. And sometimes it's just enough to get an arrest. I go back to what Doug Carter said. We got a judge's signature for a probable cause. Look at this again. And he also believes that there's more people involved. If you look right here, Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter, in an interview Thursday with iTeam 8, said his agency is still looking for others involved in the Delphi murders. And tips on the case are still coming in. This is where he said it.
This is your guy?
The judge signed the probable cause affidavit for the arrest of Richard Allen for 2 counts of murder. Yes.
Do you think there are other people involved?
I'm not going to go there. I really hope that now that we're in this phase of prosecutorial process and due process, because everyone's innocent until they're proven guilty.
I can't get Keegan out of my mind either. There was such a roundup of pedos. Acid Red Devil said the murder weapon was revealed recently. Yep, they dropped all that yesterday. Not just a gun was used. We know there was a bullet near one of the girls. But we know a knife was used. And we know that when they went to the house, Richard and Kathy Allen's house, they were looking for knives. A lot of people say, how did he get out after such a heinous crime unsuspected? Nobody noticing anything. Well, most people, when they're out taking a hike, they mind their own business. But this is what was put together by Indy Archives.
It says that investigators received prior tips encountering a tip narrative from an officer who actually interviewed Richard Allen all the way back in 2017. Back then, and I'm going to quote here from the probable cause affidavit, it says, Mr. Allen was on the trail between 13:30 and 15:30. So that's between 1:30 and 2:30 in the afternoon. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the New Freedom Bridge. While at the New Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was smaller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did he speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anyone, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead, however, did not pay attention to them. He did not take any photos or video. And we then hear later that police here in this probable cause affidavit talked to some individuals who it seems like he described here that he passed walking in the woods, and they described a person who then has the clothing that is described in the probable cause affidavit and the police have released earlier.
Right. Police talk about 3 juveniles, 3 young people that say they saw Richard Allen, or they saw a person there who then turns out to match the description of Richard Allen, walking on the trail toward Freedom Bridge. One of the girls, it says in the court documents, described to police the male as, quote, kind of creepy, and advised he was wearing blue jeans, a really light blue jacket. His hair was gray, maybe a little brown. He didn't show his face. She told police, according to court documents, that he was wearing a duck canvas type jacket, advised that she said hi to the man, but he just glared at them. He had something covering his mouth, she told investigators. and described him as being not very tall, not bigger than 5'10", said he had his hand in his pockets. And we see here, this is the video, that was the video that we saw for years. It did show a man wearing jeans, wearing a blue jacket with hands in his pockets.
Let's get into the part about the gun here and why police believe that there is a direct link between these murders and
And he was witnessed on the trail as being muddy and bloody, even described as looking like he'd been in a fight. I'm sure you do get a little roughed up after murdering 2 innocent girls.
and Richard Allen.
Yeah, this was kind of the most stunning part, I think.
So in the probable cause affidavit, it says there was a .40 caliber unspent round less than 2 feet away from victim 2's body. Between victim 1 and victim 2's bodies, the round was unspent and had extraction marks on it. So as we move a few pages further in the probable cause affidavit, they sent the ballistics off to the Indiana State Police Crime Lab. And see if I can find the section here. It says the laboratory determined the unspent round located within 2 feet of victim 2's body had been cycled through Richard M. Allen's Sig Sauer model P226.
It is so scary to think about this. For one, the girls are communicating with a profile they believe to be a young, good-looking kid. Let's talk to the boys. Let's go out to the bridge. Let's go out to the trails where it's a warm day, where everybody else is out. And in the middle of the day, in the middle of the freaking day, they hear this.
Downhill. 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 Downhill.
All right, now we get to it. He has confessed his sins, his crimes, to his wife and his mother. Okay, let's look at him again. There's an obvious decline in his health. He's obviously lost weight. I'm sure he's got some mental issues going on. Have you guys ever heard of a case when someone goes to prison and they haven't been convicted? Because the prison he's at is no joke. Okay? It's no joke. So they want him in a county jail. I mean, he's in isolation. So they're saying because of his mental illness, his decline is the reason he's confessing to his mama and wifey. I don't know. They seem to have a lot of evidence on him, do they not? I mean, a lot. Now, what we heard back in November, December, is they kept moving him around for his own safety. Court TV has a very good breakdown of the documents. I almost lost faith in Vinny after the whole Harmony Montgomery debacle. And I do suggest everybody goes and reads them. It's not an easy read.
Okay, let's bring in our guests who are going to help us break down these new documents tonight. Joining me here in studio tonight, investigative journalist and author of the new book, Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi, Susan Hendricks is with us. In Indianapolis, Indiana, the hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast and the pair who've been following the story from the very beginning and the reason why these documents have been released tonight, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. Also joining us in Palm Springs, California, retired FBI special agent, serial killer expert, Bobby Chacon, who's also an attorney. And finally, in Orlando, Florida, psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey. Thank you everyone for being here. I want to begin. Let me put this up on the screen. This was something that jumped out to me. It comes from some of these motion papers that have been unsealed, talking about Richard Allen allegedly confessing on April 3rd, 2023. Richard M. Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard M. Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard M. Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. Wow. Anya and Kevin, let me begin with you.
I bet she did end it abruptly. And let me tell you what, Anya and her husband from the Murder Sheet, they're all over Indiana. They put a lot of documents out. How they got them, I don't know, because the story, I have to go back and look at it again. But they're all over this case. Hell, they were outside the house. Kathy Allen was sitting outside in her driveway. Scare the shit out of me if I saw them outside my house.
Your reaction to this confession, number one, did he confess to anyone else? And has his wife, my understanding is his wife has been going to court supporting him still.
Yes, she was there as recently as the June 15th hearing, which of course was the most recent hearing in his case. It's a very surprising thing to read, I would say. It's a huge deal, I think, for the prosecution and the defense. They're both going to have to contend with this. We don't know details like what exactly was said or how coherent it was, but it also seems to be, very much not a jailhouse snitch. This is on like a recorded line with his wife. So that is going to be something for the defense to certainly contend with.
Bobby Chacon, let me ask you that they do it all the time. I mean, this isn't the first case where someone has said something on those recorded lines. But those recorded lines, everyone knows they're recorded. There's an announcement, right? So it's not like you're sneaking a bug in the phone. Everyone on the line knows they're being recorded.
There's usually a nice, big, prominent sign, right, wherever the phones are that remind them that these are being recorded. However, if you have somebody that's never been in jail for a long time before, they can get worn down by the system. We've already heard allegations by his defense that he's in bad health because of his conditions. And so this may be, a case where he just got worn down physically and mentally, and he made maybe this mistake. I haven't seen the transcripts, so we don't know exactly what was said, but certainly they're characterizing it as confessions. And so this may be a case where he was worn down, he was talking to a loved one, and he made that confession.
Susan, they're talking about several times, not just once, but several times here.
Yeah, talking on the phone and just saying, I was shocked reading through these documents. And again, thanks to Anya and Kevin, because of them, we have the documents that we're reading through, and not just once, Vinny, as you said several times. So how damaging is this? The theme that I kept reading over and over again through these documents, it appears that the attorneys are going to say it's because of the facility that he's in. But the prosecutor, Nick McClelland, did point out, he said this, I'm quoting him, he said, the state believes the current status of the defendant's mental health is due to the status of the case, not due to the location of his incarceration. So reading through all of these documents, you kind of see a pattern here of what the defense attorneys are going for, mentioning that, oh, he only said that because his mental state is quickly deteriorating. I believe I read that he was eating paper
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
that was given to him during this. So
He's got a lot of issues.
if that works, we shall see.
So when he is given documents or anything, he eats the paper. He eats the paper. I mean, I've never heard that there was 5-star dining in the Pokey, but he's eating paper.
Of course, Nick McClellan is saying, no, that's not it. He would be treated the same way no matter what facility he's in. Of course, when you're awaiting trial, you're not in a prison, you're in a jail waiting. This is different, but they said, look, he's being treated well, and it has nothing to do with that.
All right, Dr. Janie Lacey, this is why we brought you in. Now, Susan mentioned the eating of paper. Let me read you more from these papers that I will not eat. Investigators were made aware by the warden of Westville Correctional Facility that Richard Allen began to act strangely. Richard Allen was wetting down paperwork he had gotten from his attorneys and eating it. He was refusing to eat and refusing to sleep. He would go days on end refusing to sleep. He further broke the tablet that he used for text messages and phone calls. He went from making up to 2 phone calls a day on April 3rd to not making any phone calls at all. On April 14th, Richard Allen was evaluated by 2 psychiatrists and 1 psychologist. From that meeting, it was determined that Richard M. Allen did not need involuntary medication and that he did not need to be moved to another facility. Since that meeting, Richard Allen has began to eat again and has begun to sleep. His behavior has returned to what it was prior to making the admission on April 3rd, 2023. So what are the things we should be trying to figure out in order to know whether or not to trust this alleged confession?
Well, we can make a lot of assumptions based off of what we know, Vinny. One is that it's reasonable that he may have mental decline with all the things. We know that you are as sick as your secrets. So all the things that he may be juggling in his mental state, he can have been honest in this phone call and also having some mental health decline. But when we look at these types of behaviors, especially what he is being charged of, and then hearing him on the phone call with his loved one that he's attached to, who he's trusted, who he's had a life with, it could all exist in the same space. It's not necessarily one or the other, but it's reasonable to assume that based off of what we know, that of course he's going to have mental instability, he's going to have mental decline, and it can also be true what he shared with his wife.
So a follow-up to that, Dr. Janie. So looking at someone physically, he looks different. We're looking at the pictures. He looks different. How much of an indication is that there could be something wrong with him mentally versus, hey, I used to be free, I'm no longer free, now I'm in jail, and you know, I'm facing the rest of my life, potential death penalty, sitting behind bars?
Well, we know, Vinny, there is a very close correlation. When we have toxic stress, we have all these things, it affects our body. We have accelerated aging, right? So when we look at this in general, of course he would age, of course, right? So the toxic stress, whatever he's going through in his mind, the things that he's telling himself, his maladaptive coping mechanisms under these situations will accelerate his aging process. And I believe that's exactly what we're seeing.
Also, in these documents, a letter from a fellow inmate, Robert Baston, and apparently we checked on his inmate number, and we believe, based upon the number on the letter, matched it up with someone who was convicted of child molestation. Anyway, this is what the fellow inmate says. I am an inmate at Westville Correctional Facility in the same unit that Richard Allen is being housed, awaiting trial. Richard Allen is being abused and mistreated along with other inmates in Westville Control Unit Restrictive Housing. There are corrupt officers and ranking officers calling Richard Allen a kid killer. Inmates threatening to kill Richard Allen and telling him to kill himself. And these inmates have made these comments in front of the warden. Anya and Kevin, what are you hearing about what's going on behind bars for this defendant?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of disturbing allegations in the letter. We looked into this inmate as well, and he seems to be a somewhat prolific jailhouse lawyer, as they say. he's often filing somewhat bizarre motions and, basically appeals for clemency in his own case, which is pretty horrific. So I think we're a bit skeptical about some of these claims unless further evidence is brought up, which of course, he can be a bit of a jailhouse lawyer and be telling the truth here and be accurate. So we're not closed-minded about it, but I think we'd want to see a little bit more because, again, what he's accused of is pretty horrific, and he has a history of kind of making bizarre claims and basically filing into his own case in a way that does not enhance his credibility.
Well, all I can say is if the shoe fits, wear it. He's telling his wife, who for whatever reason is standing beside him. His mom, I get. Not that she supports what he did, but I get that you can't change a mother's love. His wife, I don't get. She hangs up the phone abruptly, but then shows up to court. Was it last week? That's crazy.
Yeah, Bobby, when I think of jailhouse lawyers, it's guys and sometimes women who have a lot of extra time on their hands. They have a little bit of knowledge that becomes dangerous. But for someone accused of what this man is accused of, it wouldn't be unusual for the abuse to come from other inmates. There's sort of a code that we hear about inside, depending upon what you did, who your victim was, etc. But here, I mean, they're basically accusing the warden of standing by doing nothing and being corrupt.
Yeah, I would be surprised if any correctional institution in the country doesn't have people writing letters like this complaining about the behavior of guards and of wardens. It looks like name calling. It's really hard to police behavior in prison. I mean, these are people, some of these people are really bad actors out, when they're free. When you cage them up, they're going to be even worse. And so it's hard to kind of police name calling and things like that. When it's done by the guards or the wardens, it becomes a little more problematic. But again, you have to assess where the allegations are coming from and the credibility of the people making these allegations. Like I said, these guys farm themselves out to other inmates to write letters for them and write motions for them and stuff. And so I always take some of these allegations with a huge grain of salt until I can see for myself some additional verification of allegations like this.
Yeah. Susan, as you know, to me, the striking thing has been his appearance, right? This change in his appearance. And I guess the issue is going to be, what is causing this? Is it mental illness? Is it the way he's being treated? Or is it just now you've been caught and you are facing what you are facing? For the family, this is going to be difficult because now all of a sudden the focus is on the accused killer and what's wrong in his life.
Is he okay?
Yeah.
His mental health is deteriorating. We all know, of course, innocent until proven guilty, but now that we've been going through this paperwork, it's been a long road, Vinny, as you said. What stood out to me too, the biggest question, Vinny and I have spoken about it, we all have, what happened to the conservation officer in terms of Richard Allen coming forward and saying, I was there at the bridge, I was wearing this is the time that I was there? Not knowing at the time that Libby took this video that you're looking at right here on your screen, and Bobby Chacon and I did a live show April 22nd, 2019, after the change of direction press conference. So it's been a long process, the investigative process, what we did know, what we weren't privy to. Now I'm going through this saying, okay, they named the conservation officer, but we still don't know why that happened. Again, it's a small town, small county. He knew that this is all people spoke about, so why didn't he think to come forward again? And even if he looked at Richard Allen as a possible witness and not a suspect, you would think, well, wait, I spoke to a guy that maybe
he was there.
He was there. So there's still questions even with this. And of course, I believe there's 19 documents we did not see, but there's still so many questions. And again, long road for the family. There's things that I did find in here. Again, several knives were taken from his property, Richard Allen. And I believe it's the first time we heard that a knife was a murder weapon here. So we're getting tidbits of information, but I still have questions as to how that could have happened.
All right. And we've got more newly revealed documents coming up. We're going to stay on this. I want to thank Dr. Janie Lacey for joining us. Everyone else is staying with us. We'll take a look at those documents, plus coming up next hour. In Park City, Utah, Corey Richens, including a pair of underwear and socks and a sock. That tells another part of what you had, a recording of the voice. It took forever to solve this case. Now tonight, we're getting this newly unsealed information. Let me put this is from the search warrant, folks. This stuff is huge. Take a look. Autopsies of the girls ruled their deaths as homicides, and their wounds were created by a sharp object. Elsewhere in the documents, it refers to a knife. So that's now confirmed, a knife. Investigators located Liberty German's iPhone 6S under her body at the scene and were able to recover video. We saw that little clip, the 12 seconds there, or the...
Okay, this is very important, and this is why I think he was given a heads up. Okay? Libby is communicating with the Anthony Shots profile. She has her sister Kelsey take her and Abby out to the park, out to the bridge. He just happens to show up with a gun and a knife, happens to just walk across them. No.
6 seconds, however long it is, 3 seconds, of approximately 43 seconds in length. So there's much more to that video, captured at 2:13 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. 43 seconds of video. They also determined that articles of clothing from the girls were missing from the scene, including a pair of underwear and socks.
So he took one of the girls' panties and he took socks. I would love to know, I'm sure we can guess, which girl he took the underwear from. Nobody is just going to go for a walk on the bridge with a gun and a knife and just happen to come across two girls that think they're there to meet somebody from a profile. No.
And a sock. That tells another part of what may have happened to these two girls. All right, worst case scenario, their last moments on Earth. Our guest still with us, Susan Hendricks, investigative journalist, Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, host of the Murder Sheet podcast, and Bobby Chacon, serial killer expert, former FBI agent and attorney. Okay, Susan, I'll start with you. The knife. This is huge, right? Like, and what happened to these girls, how they died, and now confirmed.
Becky, I've gotten close to both families, but Becky has said to me time and time again, look, Susan, we just don't have the information to discuss. I don't know the cause of death. I don't know how they died. And I've mentioned this before, that Kelsey at times had said to me, look, I don't even know if I want to know. Because Mike, Libby's grandfather, was the one to see the body of Libby and say, yes, this is Libby. So what he saw and decided not to discuss is what has been privy to just police officers and investigators in this case. So seeing that, and imagine reading through this, as the family members I'm sure have, and hearing that it is a sharp object, that it is a knife, and going back to that day in 2017 and thinking about their final moments. Because I've heard it before from Mike saying, what keeps me going, Susan, is the last few minutes of these girls' lives and what they went through. And that is what they think about constantly in terms of finding justice. So when reading through these documents, I guess I was expecting some big, and we heard a lot of information. And we did hear that he confessed allegedly to, his wife in jail, and that we heard it was a knife. And again, I don't think this there is no such thing as closure, I've learned, or makes anything better, but it is more information that we know and that we shall see moving forward. It makes me wonder if this will go to trial. Will there be a plea deal? And we see the direction of the defense. They are going in on his mental state.
They have to. That's where you have to go. This evidence seems very overwhelming the more and more it comes out, despite the fact that it took 5 years to get here. Anya and Kevin, let's talk about the video 43 seconds in length. And through the years, we just had that little tiny clip. It seems like this becomes so significant and so important in the case.
Yeah, that video is absolutely crucial evidence, and not just because of the fact that it captured the image and the voice of Bridge Guy, but because we've been learning now that it captured the girls. One of them makes a reference to this guy has a gun. You even hear the click of a gun, and that told investigators that a gun was used in this crime in some fashion. If it was not used to actually commit the homicide, it was likely used to control the girls and to intimidate them.
And Bobby, I'm still wondering, how is it that he knew to be there? Or did he just kind of show up? I always carry a knife and a gun with me. It seems like there would have to be more to the story. Like why he is there that day, Bobby. And we're seeing missing.
He was never, thank you, Vinny, because that's what I was saying too. He was never an avid walker, hiker, didn't spend time out on the bridge. And he just happened to meet them on the bridge.
Underwear and a sock. So, I mean, it just seems that there's could it be a coincidence that you have a killer there who happens to be walking with his gun and his knife?
That may remain a mystery, Vinny. The why to me is never as important as the how and the who. You don't need to prove the why at court most of the time. A motive is not really necessary. But you do want to know, and look, these are all people that are, local to the area. They've been there before. They frequent it. If he was having ideas about doing this, if he had some ideation growing in him, within him, and he was frequenting that bridge and saw girls there all the time, he just decided to choose this day and time to do this. We may never know that because that can only come from him definitively. We can guess at it, we can speculate on it, but unless we ever hear from him directly, which is unlikely, we'll never know the answers to those.
Anya and Kevin, I want to put up on the screen another part from the court papers that you got unsealed, referencing what you're talking about with the gun. Investigators believe Richard M. Allen was the male depicted in the victim 2's video saying, "Guys down the hill." They believe Richard Allen was carrying his Sig Sauer model P226 on that day due to the cycled rounds matching that firearm that was located within feet of victim 2's body. They further believe he was carrying the Sig Sauer model P226 from the audio from victim 2's video, in which investigators believe they hear the sound of the gun being cycled and one of the victims mentioning gun. So put together the pieces for us here, Anya and Kevin, about how the sound of the gun, the make and model of the gun, how all of this pieces together for prosecutors for their case.
Yes, absolutely. The Sig Sauer is absolutely crucial for the prosecution's case. This is a gun that Indiana State Police say they can conclusively link to the bullet found between the two bodies of the girls. And so that is something that ties Allen definitively to the scene. Before he's putting himself on the trails, he's putting himself on the bridge, he's nearby. But without that gun and with that bullet, there's nothing definitively that we know about at this point tying him to the scene. So in our view, the gun evidence and the ballistics evidence is pretty crucial for the prosecution to have.
So Bobby, I'm not a gun expert. Cycling a gun, what exactly does that mean? And could that result in a bullet being left at the scene?
Yes, so the P226 is the gun I carried in the FBI. I still carry that gun to this day. And cycling, it means, you've seen it on TV when they wrap the action back, it ejects a round. If one's in the chamber, it ejects it out. Now that bullet, it doesn't have to be fired to be, as soon as you rack it. Now, often people rack a gun like that to intimidate or to scare somebody. Like you rack it. It's like racking a shotgun. When you rack a pistol, you say, okay, I mean business now. Now I've got one in the chamber. Because oftentimes if there isn't one in the chamber, you rack it like that to get one in the chamber. If there is one already and you rack it, you've ejected now a bullet that hasn't been fired. Now, a gun makes basically 3 impressions on a bullet. One is the bullet that as it leaves the gun going through the barrel, there are something called lands and grooves, and that the projectile then can be matched to that barrel of that weapon. The other 2 markings come from the shell casing that never leaves the gun, never gets fired. One is on the primer when the hammer hits the primer, causing the little mini explosion and causing the gases to expand and force the projectile to the front. The other is when on a semi-automatic pistol, when it's ejected out of the gun, it has to be grabbed by the gun. That makes an impression on that shell casing, and then it gets ejected with force. That's almost like a fingerprint on that casing that's unique to that gun. They can fire 1,000 guns, every one will be different, and they can match it to the gripper, the thing that grips that shell casing before it ejects it. And that's what they've done here. They've matched the markings on that shell casing because it hasn't been fired. The bullet is still in it. But the outside of the shell casing has markings on it that were caused by that weapon grabbing it and ejecting it when the person cycled that weapon. Now, the defense is attacking this science as shaky, but this has been used in hundreds, if not thousands of cases as definitive proof that they've matched that bullet to that gun. Another thing that's key here is if you look at the interviews of him, they locked him in to that gun. They actually asked him, have you ever lent this gun to anybody? Does anybody else use this gun? Does anybody have access to this gun? And he said, no, that's my gun. Only I have access to it. Only I carry that gun. So I knew when I read that they had known before that interview that they got that ballistic match. They wanted to lock him into that weapon. And he did in that interview say, this is only my gun. No one uses it. No one's had access to it.
And key for prosecutors at trial, you bring in an expert like Bobby Chacon who can explain that the way you just did. And that'll go a long way to convincing a jury. All right, everyone's staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the evidence that was collected from the search warrant of Richard 140 caliber S&W cartridge from.
Okay, let's look what was taken from the home. A Sig Sauer, a 40 caliber cartridge, 2 magazines containing 40 caliber cartridges, multiple sweatshirts, jackets, hats, gloves, boots, numerous knives, multi-tools, multiple laptops, hard drives, flash drives, cell phones, cutting of carpeted area underneath the spare tire of the Ford Focus, swabs of driver lap belt and driver shoulder belt of Ford Focus, 2 swabs from passenger side of carpeted floorboards.
The search warrant of his home. Let's take a look. Put it up on the screen. 1 black Sig Sauer P226 40 caliber handgun. 1 40 caliber S&W cartridge from a keepsake box on the bedroom dresser. 1 40 caliber S&W cartridge from inside a Sig Sauer. 2 magazines containing 40 caliber cartridges. Multiple sweatshirts, jackets, hats, gloves, boots. Numerous knives. Multi-tools, multiple laptops, multiple hard drives, multiple flash drives and memory cards, multiple cell phones, cutting of carpeted area underneath the spare tire of the Ford Focus, swabs of the driver lap belt and driver shoulder belt of the Ford Focus, 2 swabs from the passenger side of the carpeted floorboards. Remember, all this is years later, by the way, but remember, described as being covered in mud and blood. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, from that search warrant, what jumped out to you?
I thought it was really interesting that they were taking pieces of the carpeting from underneath the spare tire and testing it. It makes me wonder what is it that they saw there, and what do they think it might be that it was worth testing? That's something that really jumped out at me, as well as the large amount of weapons they took, and of course, all of the clothing that is similar to what was worn by Bridge Guy.
And it seems like he kept a lot of this stuff, right? So it's not like, you know, from the time of the double murder that, oh, the car's gone, this is gone. It seems like everything is still there. Like, wow. Let me ask you, Susan, from your perspective, what really jumped out to you?
Well, as you just mentioned, keeping all of those items, there's been so much criticism of law enforcement for not releasing this, and everyone wants to know and has the right to know. And we are grateful that we do have these documents. But in terms of the ongoing investigation, what if they did say that there was a bullet found between Abby and Libby there? Would Richard Allen have gotten rid of that gun? It's something to think about. And the video that we came out of the commercial break with, you heard someone yell, "Shame on you, child killer." One thing I noticed that they did both agree on was the change of venue, considering how many Google searches those in Delphi had done in terms of Richard Allen. So that is one thing they both agreed on. But what stood out to me was so much it seemed as though 2017, almost 6 years later, and keeping the blue jacket, as his wife allegedly said, that he still had that jacket, the gun, that he said no one, as Bobby mentioned, had ever used that gun. So would that evidence still be there if law enforcement gave us all the information that we wanted to know at the time?
Bobby Chacon, 5 years later, do you think any forensic evidence can be useful in this case that they got from the Ford Focus, from the floorboards, from the spare tire area?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they wouldn't have taken it if they didn't think it could lead to something. You hope for that. And like Susan just said, you know, he seemed to keep a lot of this stuff, which is really eerie to me because, you know, the press conference that Susan and I covered a couple of years ago, remember that was the one where they were like, we know who you are, we think you live in this town. I mean, it was really damning. And I thought after that press conference, arrest was imminent because they said, we think we know who you are, we know you're in this community, you may even be in this room, I think the police chief said at that news conference, which, you know, both shocked us when we were listening to it. And so like the fact that he didn't like just purge, you know, every piece of clothing he had and sell his car and, you know, get rid of his gun, you know, it's telling that he had a level of comfort in getting away with this. And probably with each passing year, that level of comfort went up. And it's a little eerie to me.
Okay, Anya and Kevin, so we learned a lot because of, again, the work that you're doing and getting this stuff unsealed. What don't we still know?
Oh, man. I think Susan said it really well earlier. Basically, what took so long? Why are we here in 2023 having, you know, kind of speeding towards trial? And certainly that's a good development from the prosecution's perspective. But if Allen basically placed himself on the trails, you know, early on in 2017, why did it take so long to look into that? I know we reported that the tip was misplaced and that there was a clerical error, but I know that's not satisfying for everyone. We want to know, well, where was the follow-up? Where was the DNR officer coming forward and saying, hey, look into this guy? So I think there's going to have to be, you know, some sort of reckoning on that. And I guess going forward, we don't know what exactly the defense is going to come up in terms of their strategies. It seems like they're trying to throw out the ballistics. They're trying to challenge the search warrant. They're doing everything they can that a good defense lawyer will do to try to defend their client. So, you know, where all that leads and what ultimately their strategy will be for handling some of this damaging evidence against their client, I think will be very interesting to see how we get as we get towards trial.
Susan, we only have about 20 seconds here, but what final thing do you still want to know and you think is important here that we don't know yet?
And again, it's what Bobby said. It's really not important in terms of the charges of how. It's the why. And I always want to know that. And I know that the family does. It's why would you do this? Why pick out Abby and Libby? And was he on that bridge and spent, I don't know, months there waiting for the right opportunity? I know there was, as we saw in the probable cause affidavit, there were 3 young girls. Was that too many? Was this just the right timing for what he wanted to do? Was it timing? Did he point them out specifically? And why? 2 innocent lives and the damage he has done long-term for these families. It's just horrific. And to his family too, confessing to his wife, and he has a daughter that's married. It's the why did this have to happen?
Susan Hendricks, thank
Well, according to Doug Carter, and this was way before Richard Allen was arrested, he said, Bud, from your Dropbox account, off your phone, we have started one of the largest child porn investigations ever taken in the state of Indiana. That could be why. Doug Carter also says his agency is still looking for others involved with the Delphi murders. Please don't forget, Richard Allen's daughter, his wife, posted this on July 7th of 2018. This is his daughter on the bridge. Does he look like somebody that just likes to hike in the middle of the day? He's a beer drinker. If he's got the day off, he's going to be watching the boob tube, drinking some cold ones. He's not going to be out there getting his exercise. It was a warm day, and he was dressed for winter. It was an unusually warm day. That's why so many people were out. And he shows up looking like the Unabomber. Gotta be kidding me. I still think there's gotta be some connection, because I don't believe in coincidence. It's one thing if you go to church and then you see somebody at the restaurant afterward, and like, oh, I just saw you at church. Well, people eat. That's not really a coincidence. But you have the Anthony Schatz profile. The girls ask Kelsey, take us out to the bridge. And he just happens to show up with a gun and a knife on the bridge? Who the hell would walk on that bridge? Listen to what Keegan says here.
Like I'm being harassed completely.
Did you have anything to do with the murders of Abby or Libby?
Not at all. And I've gave up my DNA, a hair follicle test. I've done everything they wanted me to.
In December, Delphi investigators announced that Catfish account Anthony Schatz was active on Instagram and Snapchat in 2016 and 2017, and they asked for anyone who interacted with that profile to come forward. But more than a year ago, then 26-year-old Kegan Kline admitted to investigators that he was behind the fake profile and that he used it to ask young girls for nude pictures and videos. Tell me about Anthony Schatz. Why did you create that profile?
I don't really know. I was just lonely, you know what I mean?
He knows why. He knows why. And to understand Kegan, you have to understand his father, Tony. And I'm going to put a whole show about it together because his father groomed him to be this deviant. His father is a bad person. He is a sicko. So when he says, I don't know, he stalked these girls. He was seen outside of a house. The only thing that he really tells the truth on is when he says, I was never going to meet him in person. And I believe that. I believe that. Also, him and his father ran out to Vegas right after the murders of Abby and Libby. You think they were going to see Celine Dion? Or to sell some images from the murder?
Just talking to people. I don't know why I did it, really.
And were you ever trying to meet these girls in real life that you were talking to?
No, never.
Just 11 days after the murders of Abby and Libby, task force investigators served a search warrant on the home that Kegan shared with his dad. At the time, the FBI told the Lafayette Journal and Courier they found nothing to indicate a connection to the Delphi case. Kegan's electronics were confiscated then, But he wasn't arrested until 3 years later. He's now facing 30 counts of child pornography and child solicitation in Miami County, Indiana, unrelated to the Delphi murders. He says, though, that Indiana State Police told him Anthony Schatz had been communicating with Libby before her murder. So why do you think investigators are putting so much focus on you right now?
I have not a clue. I think it's because they said I was the last person to talk to her.
That would be a huge clue, dude. You were the last person to talk to Liberty German. I'm sorry. You were the last person. I'm getting upset. You were the last person to talk to Libby. And she winds up on a bridge with a guy with a gun and some knives that says this to the girls on the bridge. On the bridge. When the police say you were the last one to talk to the victim or one of the victims, that's a big deal. Particularly when you're doing it with a profile meant to lure girls for one way or another.
I think it's because they said I was the last person to talk to her, is what they've told me.
And then she shows up at the bridge and they're abducted and later found dead.
Right.
And that was not you.
No, 100% not.
Keegan says he has no memory or knowledge of communicating with Libby, and investigators haven't confirmed if what he says is true. Do you think you're going to be charged with anything related to Abby and Libby's murder?
No, I don't.
So the state police haven't threatened that?
No.
Mike Klein is still in the Miami County Jail on.
Yeah. Snow said this is all coming together. They make me sick. And so many people with their depravity their lives have been turned upside down. This is the real person from the Anthony Schatz profile. He's a good dude. He's a daddy. He's a professional. His pictures were stolen to make this profile to lure these girls, whether it was for pictures, videos, or to meet on a bridge.
These photos a lot recently. An update now. That fake social media profile shared by detectives investigating the murder of 2 young girls in Delphi. Well, now for the very first time, we're hearing from the man whose pictures were stolen and used by that Anthony Schatz profile. Our Jenny Runovich talked with the former model and now current police officer in Alaska, who frankly was pretty shocked to see his face connected to this investigation in Indiana.
Vincent Kowalski, a police officer in Alaska, found himself in the middle of a murder investigation here in Indiana this month. His photos when he was a model after high school, stolen and used, police say, by a man accused of catfishing young girls. The fake Anthony Schatz account also caught the attention of detectives investigating the Delphi murders. Kowalski says he found out about the investigation when an Instagram follower sent him a link to a press release with his face front and center.
Just seeing your face blasted all over the news was crazy.
Kowalski, who still values fitness to work as a police officer, no longer models on Instagram. He's now a father of 2 girls. So the association with a child exploitation case and a murder investigation of 2 teens is especially troubling.
I got a young daughter, about 1 year and 4 months old, and my other daughter's 10, so she's coming up on the the social media age, soliciting videos from young girls, like that's disgusting. And it makes me sick. But to know that 2 young girls possibly lost their life because of my picture, it's the worst of the worst. How you just keeps you up at night as a parent knowing that people are out there like that.
Now, this isn't the first time that Kowalski's modeling photos have been stolen and used by a bogus account. In fact, it's happened for years. Our coverage continues tonight at 6 o'clock. His frustration with catfishers and the change he would love to see from social media companies to help stop them for good.
And he's a police officer. Now, he said it's not the first time it's happened, but it's the first time it's been associated and he's been confronted about a murder. I think this ring is much deeper, and that's why when people say, why did it take so long? I think it's because of this ring. This is horrible. So Kathy put the family home up for sale. This is their home in Delphi, Indiana. This is where they raised their daughter after they moved from Mexico, Indiana. $254,000. Someone's going to get a lot of money from the sale of this house because one offer is still pending because they bought the house for $83,000. And of course, someone's going to buy it. I wouldn't touch it. And by the way, Richie did all the landscaping. He did all the yard work. He did all the upkeep around the house. Shannon, Georgia Peach, thank you for the super sticker. Do you think this is the first time or just got started? Oh, I think it goes back years. I think it's deep. I think it's deep. Now remember, the confession to Kathy was made on April 3rd. Richard Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard admitted several times that he had killed Abby and Libby. Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy, ends the phone call abruptly. He also confessed to his mother. And there's his mother and Kathy at court on June 15th. Make it make sense. I can't. Make it make sense. Let me take a poll real quick before I start shutting down. Do you think more people are involved, or do you think Richard just happened to be out on the bridge with a gun and a knife and came across Abby and Libby? I can't shake the feeling that it's what Doug Carter's saying, that there's more involved and that this is a ring of some sort. And they've been locking up pedos left and right around that area. Not in Delphi so much, but Lafayette, Indiana. One guy, to me, looked like the profile. I posted it in the Crime Lines and Lies Facebook group about this time last year. I said, this guy looks like the Delphi profile. Gaga says not alone. Pat K says pedo ring. Jules says ring. Sharon says, I think it starts with KK. I think KK is a part of it, but I think it starts with his dad. Because like I said, to get to know Kegan and why he is the way he is, you'd have to understand his father. And his father is one nasty human being. Next week, do you guys want to do a show about the history of Tony Klein and his son Kegan? I'm just giving you a warning now. It's not a pretty sight. You let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to start shutting this down. I appreciate everybody being here for Abby and Libby and supporting their families. Nana said, yes, please. Mermaid said, yes. Brett said, sure. Slim said, let's do it. Also, let's do this. At 12:30 Central today, we're having a members live you do not want to miss. There's depravity going on in another case that we need to discuss. And we're going to discuss as friends. So until I see you then, have a nice lunch, have a nice breakfast, have a nice dinner, whatever time of day it is for you. And I will see you back here. Thank you for being the best chat, the best friends, the best community on YouTube. You guys are the best.
This is your guy?
The judge signed the probable cause affidavit for the arrest of Richard Allen for 2 counts of murder. Yes.
Do you think there are other people involved?
I'm not going to go there. Really hope that now that we're in this phase of prosecutorial process and due process, because everyone's innocent until they're proven guilty.